nationalism stand for? So when we are reading about liberal nationalism, you know, we are reading nationalism in so many different forms. So today we are going to discuss liberal nationalism. The word liberal itself, okay, it's very clear that open ended liberal ideas, that person is very liberal ways of thinking. So many times this is a very common word which you might have heard time and again. So when we are talking about liberal nationalism in Europe, what did it mean? Clear? So when we are talking about liberal nationalism in Europe, what did it mean?
Dear students, if my voice is audible, then can you please raise your hands virtually? I think so, due to some connectivity issues. Due to some connectivity issues, Ravindra ma'am is supposed few minutes. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
And I was telling you that they had the equality and liberalism. Is it clear? Not only meant political liberalism, but it also meant economic liberalism. तो जो political liberalism है उसके अंडर हम equality पढ़ रहे हैं. But then next is that the freedom of individual, and it emphasized the concept of government by consent. So when we are saying government by consent, तो government by consent का मतलब है that we are electing our own representatives. हमने अपने representatives को खुद elect किया है. Consent देने का मतलब है that yes, I am in favor of that particular person. That's why I have voted for that, and they have formed the government. Since the French Revolution, liberalism stood for end of autocracy and clerical privileges. ये तो हमने बार बार पढ़ लिया है कि इसके साथ क्या हुआ था. Churches were nationalized, clear, and privileges were taken away. Privileges किनके पास थी? Those who were in the high rank of the society, those feudal lords, aristocrats, nobility, clear, they enjoyed certain privileges. And one of the privilege was that they did not have to pay to the taxes, and the taxes were being paid by the peasantry. The third estate was paying the taxes. तो हमें privilege का क्या मतलब होता है? Privilege का मतलब होता है कुछ ऐसा advantage जो हमें एक particular family में born होने के कारण या एक society में एक पर्टिकुलर सेक्शन को बिलोंग करने के कारण ऑटोमेटिकली हमारे पास आ जाता है, उसको हम कहते हैं प्रिविलेज. So at that time in France, in the French society, the privileges were being enjoyed by those who were in the upper rank. A constitution and a representative government through parliament. ये हमें पता है कि फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन का, मैंने आपको उस दिन बोला था कि एक सिंगल लाइन में अगर हमें फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन को बताना है, so that was the change of political system from monarchy to a elected parliament. But 19th century liberals also stressed the inviolability of private property. This is the last line of the first paragraph. So इसका क्या मतलब है? इसका मतलब है कि जो चाहे वो लिबरल थे, वो they were speaking about equality before law. They wanted that everybody in the society should be equal, but they also wanted that the private property should be secure from any kind of violation. Violation का मतलब है कि जो प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी है उस पे किसी और का हक नहीं है, उस इंडिविजुअल का ही हक है. इसके लिए हम एक कॉमनली समटाइम्स वी यूज्ड अ वर्ड ट्रेसपास, ट्रेसपासिंग. क्लियर? आपने कई बार देखा होगा कि समटाइम्स देयर इज अ प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी है, कहीं जहां कोई इंपॉर्टेंट इंडिविजुअल प्राइवेट प्लेसेस हैं, वहां पर लिखा होता है ट्रेसपासर्स विल बी प्रोसिक्यूटेड. ट्रेसपासर्स विल बी प्रोसिक्यूटेड का मतलब होता है कि ये जो एरिया है यहाँ पर सिर्फ जिस चीज के लिए ये बना है उसी को अलाउड है. तो यहाँ पर हम ये वर्ड क्यों, आई एम टेलिंग दैट एट दैट टाइम they were in favor, liberals were in favor that जो प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी है उसको अनटच्ड रहना चाहिए, that should not be nationalized. क्लियर? जैसा कि फ्रेंच रेवोल्यूशन के बाद हुआ था. नेक्स्ट, but they did not believe in universal suffrage. This also we very clearly know from the 9th standard French Revolution, what we have studied, that they did not give right to vote to women. Clear? And they also did not give this right to all men. किनको फिर ये अधिकार मिला था? That is to cast their vote to only those who were property owning men, a particular section of the society which belonged to a particular segment having a property, जिनके पास एक स्टिपुलेटेड अमाउंट जो उन्होंने फिक्स कर दी थी उतनी प्रॉपर्टी थी, उनको ही राइट दिया गया था वोट देने का, to select the government by consent. And on one hand we were talking about equality before law, but women and all men were not given the right, and women and those men had to struggle a lot to get the right to vote. And this struggle was not only limited to France. I have given you the example of England also. Though England had industrial revolution, it was a very liberal country. It was ruling over the other countries. But still in England or in UK, women did not have the right to vote. There was a long struggle. Women had to even go to jail in continuation with their struggle to get the right to vote. So it was only when women stated, when there was a census. Census होता है कि जब हम population की counting करते हैं, तो women refused that we will not be counted, क्योंकि हमें right to vote तो दिया नहीं जा रहा, तो हमें population में क्यों count किया जा रहा है? We should not be counted as population. So it was after a long struggle that the women got the right to vote. But it was an advantage for the women in India that when India became independent in 1947 and the constitution was implemented, so we had universal adult franchise. Hamare, before it was 21, the age, and now it is 18. So all immaterial of the fact whether they belong to any gender or they belong to any caste or community or religion, all the people had the right to vote, that is universal adult franchise. So at that time in France also, this was not there, and women were given the status of a minor. Minor जो होता है, जो हम कहते हैं कि जो अभी तक adult नहीं है, and that person, that individual needs the protection of someone else, of an adult. तो उस टाइम पे सोसाइटी में women को क्या था, they were given the status of a minor and they were put under the authority of their fathers or their, after the marriage, under the authority of their husbands. So the throughout the 19th century and early 20th century, see till how long they had to struggle, non-propertied men organized opposition movements demanding equal political rights. So this is about political liberalism. So now let's come to the economic liberalism. That is, in this, liberalism stood for freedom of markets and the abolition of state imposed restrictions on the movements of goods and capital. You have read globalization in economics. Globalization में भी हमने किया था liberalism, that how the economy was liberalized till 1991. Before that, the Indian economy was not liberalized. Clear? Trade barriers were there. So how in 1991, when the concept of globalization was widespread, so at that time the Indian economy was liberalized. Clear? And trade barriers were removed. So once again, I am telling you, trade barriers is that the restrictions. तो यहाँ पर भी जब हम बात कर रहे हैं freedom of markets, freedom of market का मतलब है that freedom to trade freely, that is for sale and purchase. क्यों? क्योंकि इससे पहले क्या हो रहा था, जो हम we are doing one example of Germany here. Move on to page number 10. So Germany was also divided into small principalities and confederations of 39 states. और वहां पर हर एक की अपनी करेंसी थी और अपने अपने वेट्स और मैयर्स थे. इसका मैंने छोटा सा आपको एग्जांपल पहले भी दे दिया था कि सपोज 39 inches was considered 1 meter at one place, so it might be 36 inches is equal to 1 meter at some other place, and 37 or 38 denominations were different. So what was happening? If a trader is taking his or her merchandise from one place to another, he had to suffer huge losses and harassment. Harassment in the sense that the calculations had to take long place because the quantities were different. एक तो करेंसी भी अलग अलग थी एक जगह से दूसरी जगह में, जर्मनी में जो छोटी छोटी प्रिंसिपैलिटीज और कन्फेडरेशंस में डिवाइडेड था, और एक वहां पर अलग अलग तरह की monuments the. So all this created lot of problem for the merchants to sell their merchandises to different places. तो इसके लिए जब उन्होंने इकोनॉमिक लिबरलिज्म की डिमांड की, तो ये डिमांड की गई कि जो है ये जो मेजरमेंट्स हैं और ये जो करेंसी है, दैट शुड बी सेम, सो दैट टू मच टाइम इज नॉट स्पेंट ऑन कैलकुलेशंस ओनली when the things are being transported or when sale and purchase of goods is going on, so much time is spent in these. So now let's come to the in between. They have given the example. That example, what I have told you, you can read. Now next we can come to the next paragraph on page number 10. Such conditions were viewed as obstacles. Which conditions? Which I have just now explained to you. Economic exchange and growth by new commercial classes who argued for creation of a unified economic territory. Clear? Unified economic territory का मतलब है कि at least for trading purposes within one territory, within one state, there should be common denominations of measurements, weights, and currency. So as a result, in 1834, a customs union or zollverein, इसको underline कर लो आप. In 1834, a customs union or zollverein was formed at the initiative of Prussia and joined by most of the German states. The union abolished tariff barriers. Economic liberalism, removing of tariff barriers. Tariff क्या होता है? Tariff is a tax which is imposed by one country on the goods which are imported from other countries. Clear? Tariff is a tax which is imposed by one country on the goods which are imported from the other countries. Clear? Trading क्या है? Import and export. We have done already in economics. Geography भी में हमने ये पढ़ा था ट्रेड के बारे में. क्लियर? तो लिफ्टिंग ऑफ ट्रेड बैरियर्स. तो उस टाइम पे जो कस्टम यूनियंस बनाई गई, ये कस्टम यूनियंस क्या बनाई गई? टू मैनेज द टैरिफ एंड इकोनॉमी विद इन अ पर्टिकुलर टेरिटरी. क्लियर? ये जो यूनियंस बनाएंगे जिसका नाम हमने क्या है, जोलोवरिन हमने पढ़ा है, वो दैट इज टू मैनेज द टैरिफ and economy within a country. And what is tariff? I have already told you. So that is reduced. तो पहले कितनी थी वहां पर? 30 and it was reduced to 2. So the creation of a network of railways further stimulated mobility. Further stimulated mobility का मतलब है कि चीजों को एक जगह से लाना, खरीदना और बेचना और भी आसान हो गया. स्टिम्युलेटेड मोबिलिटी. मोबिलिटी का मतलब है कि एक इजी मूवमेंट मिल गई. किसको? ट्रेडिंग को. हार्नेसिंग इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट. हार्नेस इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट का मतलब है कि किसी तरह से कुछ ऐसा करना जिससे कि हमें बेनिफिट हो. टू हार्नेस. ठीक है? इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट. तो ये जो सारे उसके बाद स्टेप्स लिए गए, ये जो चेंजेस हुए, दे वर फॉर द बेनिफिट ऑफ ऑन द इकोनॉमिक फ्रंट. क्लियर? टू नेशनल यूनिफिकेशन. नेशनल यूनिफिकेशन ये हमें पता ही है, हमने किया है ना. हाउ मीन्स ऑफ ट्रांसपोर्ट एंड कम्युनिकेशन आर लाइफलाइन ऑफ अ कंट्री. We have done a chapter in geography. Clear? That how means of transport and communication are a lifeline of a country. ठीक है? तो अगर हमारी इकोनॉमी स्ट्रांग है, हमें इकोनॉमी में फ्रीडम है, क्लियर, वी आर इजिली मूविंग फ्रॉम वन प्लेस टू अनदर, वी गेट टू नो ईच अदर. नहीं तो पहले क्या होता था? When in the earlier times in India also, we might talk about that the Britishers did much harm to India. But again and again, I have told you that this goes to the benefit of the British, that the British introduced postal system, telegraph system, and railways to India. ये उसका benefit ही था कि we could communicate and bring the people together to fight against the British. इसी तरह they are talking about national unification. I told you that we will do unification of Germany, Italy and UK. तो यहाँ पर ये जो mobility, common currency, uniform weights and measures, lifting of trade barriers, ये सारी चीजें किस तरफ मूव कर रही हैं? लोगों को आपस में जोड़ने के लिए, bringing the people together. A wave of economic nationalism. इकोनॉमिक नेशनलिज्म हम क्यों कह रहे हैं? बिकॉज इन सब चीजों में, बाइंग एंड सेलिंग में, हमने एक कॉमन फीचर क्रिएट कर लिया. एक कॉमन फीचर क्रिएट कर लिया. क्लियर? एंड हम सब बराबर हो गए. हम अलग अलग पार्ट्स में डिवाइडेड नहीं हैं. क्लियर? इकोनॉमी की तरफ से भी. नेशनल स्ट्रेंथन्ड द वाइडर नेशनलिस्ट सेंटिमेंट्स. तो इसने किस चीज को एडेड एडवांटेज हो गई? जो हमारा दूसरा पॉलिटिकल नेशनल सेंटिमेंट चल रहा था, ठीक है, सोसाइटी में उस टाइम पे. वी वर इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ क्रिएटिंग नेशन स्टेट्स. ठीक है? तो उसको इस इकोनॉमिक नेशनलिज्म ने क्या दिया? उसमें एक ये एडेड एडवांटेज हो गया, हमारे लिए एक एडेड एडवांटेज हो गया. एंड दिस बेनिफिटेड द नेशनलिस्ट. वाइडर नेशनलिस्ट सेंटिमेंट क्यों कह रहे हैं? वाइडर का मतलब ऑल अदर एस्पेक्ट. हमने सोशियो डेमोक्रेटिक किया था ना स्टार्टिंग में, जो वर्ड किया था. आई टोल्ड यू सोशियो. सोशियो मींस कनेक्टेड विद द सोसाइटी, विद द पीपल. तो कहीं भी अगर सोसाइटी में कोई प्रोटेस्ट चल रहा है, कोई स्ट्रगल चल रही है, तो उसके सोसाइटी के 3 एस्पेक्ट हैं: सोशल, पॉलिटिकल, इकोनॉमिक. किसी भी एस्पेक्ट में इंप्रूवमेंट होती है, इट मींस इट विल बेनिफिट द अदर एस्पेक्ट्स. तो जब इकोनॉमिक एस्पेक्ट में हार्नेसिंग इकोनॉमिक इंटरेस्ट, नेशनल यूनिफिकेशन, अ वेव ऑफ इकोनॉमिक नेशनलिज्म स्ट्रेंथन्ड, उसको और मजबूत किया, द वाइडर नेशनलिस्ट सेंटिमेंट्स ग्रोइंग एट दैट टाइम. तो उस टाइम पे जो पॉलिटिकल और सोशल फील्ड में यूरोप में एक नेशनलिस्ट सेंटिमेंट चल रहा था, उसको इस इकोनॉमिक ट्रेड बैरियर के लिफ्टिंग के कारण उसने इस सेंटिमेंट को और मजबूत करने के लिए और उसको स्ट्रेंथन करने के लिए मदद की. Clear? So this is about liberalism on the political and the economic front. So if you have any doubts, you can ask or some